Everything could change in just a few weeks, and you need to get ready right now. You need to stock up right now because the mainstream media is not reporting on this. They're not telling you about this. And this is something that could rock the food supply and the supply chain. All right. This is something that could rock it and potentially even bring down certain sectors of the global supply chain. All right. And this is not what you think. It's not what the media has been reporting on. They have totally blacked out on this for some reason. And it's probably a political thing. It doesn't fit their agenda. But this is real. This is happening. And you need to know about it and you need to be prepared for it. All right. And this is all interconnected to energy prices, gas prices, inflation, all these food shortages, fuel shortages, all these things are piling up, and we could see massive consequences happening within just a few weeks. All right. So let's dive into this news. Lots of big stuff going on. We'll get into the big stuff in just a little bit, but I wanted to hit this other stuff first because it's all interconnected. All right. So gas prices for this year on Thanksgiving are the highest ever recorded. That's what AAA is reporting. So Thanksgiving gas prices highest recorded, but Americans are still hitting the road. It says gas prices over Thanksgiving 2022 are the highest ever recorded according to AAA. However, that's not stopping Americans from traveling over the long holiday weekend. The national average price for a regular gallon of gasoline is about $3.60, the highest figure for Thanksgiving since AAA has begun tracking since the year 2000. All right, so you can say all you want, economy's doing great, it's doing good, but the numbers don't lie. Gas prices are still the highest they've been on record for Thanksgiving. All right, the numbers don't lie. So that's going to affect everything. That's going to increase the price of everything. I'm still paying actually around $4 a gallon, right? That's what I'm paying. So it's even more than $3.60. I'm in Colorado. I know some places it's cheaper. Some places it's like $3. All right, this is a national average, but it's still, the average is the highest it's ever been on record on Thanksgiving. So, all right, economy's strong as heck, apparently. And at the same time, we are shutting down oil drilling. I read that we just approved oil drilling leases for Venezuela, though, for American companies to drill in Venezuela, okay? But the Biden administration has repeatedly denied oil drilling leases on federal land and denied renewing all these federal contracts that they had. I believe even a couple weeks ago, he came out and he was saying, he was like kind of bragging about it. He's like, no, we haven't done any more new drilling. Like there's been no more drilling or anything. Because he was asked about it and he was like, no, there's been no new drilling. So what's happening here? Why are gas prices still the highest they've been, but we are shutting down oil drilling leases and approving them? All right, this just happened. We are approving American companies, I think it was Chevron, to go to Venezuela and drill over there. It's insane. Why don't we just approve them to drill on our own domestic land? All right. And you are paying for this more than just at the gas pump. It's also hitting your electricity bill as well. It's more than just the gas pump. People, I know you guys know this, but the public in general doesn't realize that your electricity comes from fossil fuels, a vast amount of it. You can't just ban fossil fuels and expect there to be electricity there as a replacement, right? It doesn't work like it's generated from massive fossil fuel generators, okay? So you're going to pay for this in your electric bill as well, too, these gas prices. And in Maine, they just increased your electricity bill, all right? So here's why electric bills are soaring in Maine. Electricity's customers in Maine are in for a big increase in their monthly bills next year. Last week, the Public Utilities Commission approved rate hikes coming out to about 26% for CMP customers and about 20% for Versant customers. That sounds like a lot. what is going on? What is that going to mean for the average customer? And why are we seeing such a big price jump? And they went on to say the price increase is due to the cost of natural gas, which is a big source of electricity for Maine and the New England grid in general. Right? So they voted to raise your rate by 26% for CMP customers and 20% for Versant customers. All right. That is what they voted to do. And I'm sure they've already been increasing people's rates. All right. A lot of states, they just do it. The company just increases whatever they need to for that month, and it's variable. I know it's like that in Florida, where it's completely variable month to month. They can charge you essentially whatever they want per kilowatt hour, and you could use the same amount every single month, but you could be getting charged different amounts every single time. I've experienced this in Florida myself, even before this chaos started, where I was strictly trying to monitor my energy use, trying not to use the AC at all. All these different things, turn off all the lights, not have things plugged in, really low energy use. And for some reason, my energy bill was still just sky high. I could not get it down. And I could even see my consumption was going down, but the rates were just higher in summer because other people were using their AC and putting more strain on the grid and using more electricity. And they're just saying, oh, the variable rate goes up because more people are using it. There's more demand. So you have to pay more for this electricity. Even though you're using less, you end up paying the same amount, right? So we're going to see this. And a grid operator in New England came out a couple weeks ago too and warned that we could see massive blackouts in Maine and the New England area due to this natural gas problem, because there's natural gas shortages as well. And they could see rolling blackouts in New England where they just have to turn the power off for hours a day during certain periods where gas reserves are low. All right. So get prepared, guys. That's why I keep making these videos on the power, because they are priming us for this. They want to turn our lights off so bad. That's a ultimate form of control, as well as taking your power away. All right. It provides a lot of comfort to you, all right, to have electricity, and they want to take that away. All right. And this comes, so Maine is raising the price 26%, 20% for certain customers, but this comes as they're shutting down coal plants. All right. I reported just a few days ago how they're shutting down a coal plant in Texas. Now they're shutting down another one in Colorado. All right. This is nationwide, and they're doing this in every single state. I just am covering the ones that pop up, and I see that the coal plants are being shut down. All right. So now another one is happening in Colorado, and we'll get to the big stuff in just a minute, covering all of these massive shortages, food shortages that are coming very soon. All right. But let's dive into this Colorado coal-fired plant that is shutting down. All right. So Colorado's largest coal-fired power plant could close 4 years earlier than proposed. All right. So they were already going to shut down Colorado's largest coal-fired power plant, and now they want to do it 4 years earlier. Right. While we are in the middle of an energy crisis, while we're in the middle of gas prices being high, while we're in the middle of all of these officials warning of rolling blackouts coming very soon, right? So the newest generator at Colorado's, and it's a new generator too, apparently. That's what they're saying. The newest generator at Colorado's largest coal-fired power plant would shut down by 2031, 4 years earlier than what was initially agreed upon by the operator Xcel Energy and government agencies, right? So I guess they were going to shut it down in 2035, but now they're going for 2031. And I don't know. I don't even think they were being forced to go earlier. I think they just agreed to do it earlier. So in addition to speeding up what's going on with all these energy companies? We need to see who really owns these energy companies, who's on the board, who owns majority shares in all these companies, who owns these companies where in America where they're just shutting down their plants constantly. I don't understand. And there's an even crazier story after this about another plant in California. All right, we'll get to that in just a second. But who owns these power companies that are just shutting down all over the country? And they're just like, yeah, let's shut down even earlier. Let's get this. And it's a new generator. They said it's the newest generator in Colorado at the largest coal-fired power plant. So it's a new generator, newer at least. But for some reason, they're so anxious. They just spent a bunch of money building it. It's brand new, but they're so anxious to shut it down 4 years earlier than they agreed upon before. Who owns these companies? It's very strange. We need to figure this out. I need to look into it and get a report out to you guys on this because it's very suspicious and strange who actually is shutting down the grid in the U.S. So in addition to speeding up the retirement of what would be Xcel's last remaining coal-fired power plant, the updated settlement, if approved, would cut the utility's carbon emissions by half of its 2005 levels by 2024 and by 65% by 2027. So, I don't know. I guess that's the agenda. That's the goal here, is to just cut the emissions. But do they have replacements for this energy? They say it's a new generator. I don't understand. It's just one of these things. Let's not get rid of what we have before we completely have a replacement in excess. It's just like, it's like getting rid of your house before you like have somewhere to live or whatever. It's like, why are you doing this? You know what I mean? I made the analogy before. It's like quitting your job when you have no money saved and you don't have another job lined up and you don't know how long it's like, this is not very smart decision making to just cut off our energy before we have a replacement. Let's have the grid going and then let's build on top of it. And then we'll have way excess, and then you can start taking stuff away. It's like, all right, we have excess 30% energy. Now we can start shutting stuff down. I don't understand what the rush to shut down all these power plants are. And they want to do it 4 years sooner, just even sooner. It's probably a win-win for the energy companies because they produce less energy. It's probably less cost, less input costs, less operating costs, operating expenses, less employees for less power plants, and then it's less electricity. It has to be generated, and they just charge more for it. Supply and demand, less is generated. They can just charge more for less energy. I don't know. Maybe it's just a business decision to just be like, well, you know, if we cut off this amount, then energy prices will just go up 10% anyways in Colorado, and we'll be producing 10% less energy. So 10% less operating costs, and then we'll make 10% more money. Maybe it's a win-win for them. Maybe they're just like rigging the markets here to we'll just shut down energy, make prices go up, and then we can just produce less and make the same amount or even more. Who knows? Maybe it's just a business decision for them, and they think of it as a win-win to just shut down their plants. They don't have to pay for them, no operating expenses. And then people are still going to want electricity. They don't really care if there's blackouts. They're not worried about it, right? So, but who owns these companies? Why are they doing this to Americans? What's actually happening, right? And the federal government is offering over $1 billion to California to keep their last nuclear power plant open because California wants to close their last nuclear power plant. So it's even nuclear power is being shut down, which creates no emissions. There's no carbon emitted from nuclear power. It's supposed to be a clean energy, supposedly. But California is shutting down their last nuclear power plant, and the federal government is begging them. They're offering to give them over $1 billion to keep it open because they know in reality, all these shutdowns are increasing energy prices, and it looks terrible, right? It looks terrible. So feds offer over $1 billion to keep California's last nuclear plant open. The Biden administration announced preliminary approval to spend over 1.1 billion to keep California's last operating nuclear power plant running, even as officials turned down a request for financial aid to restart a closed nuclear plant in Michigan. So apparently they had the same thing happen in Michigan. They were shutting down a plant, they offered them money, and it says they turned down a request for financial aid to restart sorry about that, I read that wrong. The federal government turned down a request from Michigan to restart a power plant in Michigan, but then they're throwing money at this one in California. So why doesn't the one in Michigan get? And why are all these power plants shutting down? What's going on? All right, what's going on? So they're willing to give 1.1 billion to California, but not to Michigan. I don't understand. Sorry, Michigan. All right, power plant gets shut down. The Energy Department said it was creating a path forward for the Diablo Canyon power plant on California's Central Coast to remain open, with final terms to be negotiated and finalized. The plant, which has been scheduled to close by 2025, was chosen in the first round of funding for the administration's new civil nuclear credit program, intended to bail out financially distressed owners or operators of nuclear power reactors. Right? So this is a big problem. Why are these power plants shutting down all over? And they say one side they say, oh, it's for carbon emissions, but then they were also shutting down 4 different hydroelectric power dams in California as well have been shut down this year. They're shutting them down, destroying the dams. 4 different ones, hydroelectric power, clean energy, and then now they're shutting down nuclear power plants in California as well. The messaging does not seem consistent, right? It does not seem consistent. It seems like it's an agenda to shut down our power. That's what it sounds like to me. And California wants to shut down their last nuclear power plant. It's just crazy, right? Hopefully they keep it open because California is getting smacked. Remember, during the summer, they were warning of rolling blackouts in California, right? They banned gasoline engines by 2035 in California, and then a week later, they were warning, do not charge your Tesla once you get home from work because you're going to overload the grid and you're going to cause rolling blackouts in California, right? But then at the same time, they're shutting down 4 hydroelectric power dams and shutting down their last nuclear power plant. So what? I don't even understand what power generation is even happening in California if they're shutting down. What are they even using? I don't even understand what kind of power generation is happening in California right now, right? Let's dive on this other stuff. Corn problems have also been happening in Colorado, right? So they are shutting down the largest coal plant in Colorado, right? And they are also having problems growing corn because of the drought. This is affecting tons of western states, and their wells are drying up, right? Their wells are running dry, and farmers are getting worried, all right? So the executive director of the Colorado Corn Administrative Committee said corn producers in the state had a very different experiences this growing season, depending on their location and availability of irrigation. All right. Quote, you've had some decent yields in the dry land, referring to the fields with no irrigation. But on the other hand, he said, even on irrigated land, quote, you have had producers that have had water short years where their wells either couldn't keep up or they didn't get as many water shares as they needed. And I think those yields suffered. All right. And a farmer went on to say he was giving his experience of what happened. He was saying that he used more water this year than in the past. Quote, we're going to check our wells here in the next few days, and I'm real worried about what we've lost in our holes as far as how much water we've pumped out this year, right? This is happening all across the country. California is experiencing the same thing. Farmers are being told you are having water rationing and you only have X amount of water shares this year, way less than you're used to, and they're having to decide what crops to water and what crops not to water, right? He says he hasn't finished crunching the numbers yet, but he estimates that even with extra water, his irrigated corn yield is down about 30 bushels per acre from last year. But that's still a world ahead of his dryland cornfields. On dryland, out of the thousands of acres, we ended up picking about 160. The rest of it burned up, right? So out of thousands of acres in dryland, dry farming, they only harvested about 160 acres, right? That's devastating. That's bad. And dry farming is happens all over the country, right? It happens in Kansas, Oklahoma, lots of places out west. They do a lot of dry corn farming. They just rely on precipitation, right? And he is saying out of thousands of acres, we ended up only picking about 160. The rest of it burned up. And then he said he was maxing out as well, right? Tapping out as well. And he's still down 30 bushels an acre for his irrigated crops, right? So this is going to affect everything. We're going to see we're going to see more shortages, lower yields, and we're also going to see higher prices. And corn is also grown for feed, right? Animals eat corn, cows eat corn, chickens eat corn. Essentially every animal you eat in the store probably ate corn at one point, unless it's like grass-fed organic beef or something, probably eats corn, right? So the prices of all that stuff's gonna go up too if the corn harvest is down. And we're seeing different stuff coming out of Ohio, right? So Ohio farmer Mark Ruff finished his 2022 harvest, and he said, quote, corn yields for us this year have been above trend line. We were early in the season checking ears, and we thought corn would be in the 160s to 170 bushels per acre, but we were delightfully surprised, pushing 200 plus in many fields. So he was getting over 200 bushels an acre in Ohio, right? So hopefully that evens out. Maybe they even out each other. That's why I wanted to throw that story in there too, because I saw that story that corn yields were actually higher in Ohio, but it could be regional things too. We could see feed prices be higher in the West and maybe be a little bit lower in the eastern regions, all right? We'll just have to see next year, but you can almost guarantee that prices are still going to be up for animal feed next year, right? And this brings us to our big story here, right? Lots of big stuff is going on, and this is why we are going to see massive shortages happen, right? Massive shortages are coming to the global food markets, right? So if you haven't heard what's happening, the mainstream media has been blacked out on this topic, right? They will not report on this. There's a few articles here and there out of like Reuters and AP, stuff like that, but you will not see this being reported on any mainstream news television stations or anything like that, right? So what's happening in Brazil right now is devastating, and it's going to devastate our global food supply, right? And the farmers there are even saying this. The farmers are even saying that they support what's happening, but they are worried about what comes next, all right? And just to, before we get into because the protests are accelerating, they're getting worse. What's happening in Brazil, it's getting worse. I covered it a couple weeks ago, but it's gotten even worse. Before we get into that, I just wanted to remind everyone how powerful Brazil is in the food economy, right? In the international food markets. That's why I was saying we could see massive food shortages on certain products coming very soon, right? Because other countries are going to be gobbling up what's left on the international markets for these products, all right? So I just wanted to remind everyone before we get into what's happening in Brazil, because there's new developments going on that could affect everything, all right? But I wanted to remind everyone how important Brazil actually is. So Brazil once again becomes the world's largest beef and chicken exporter in the world. This was an article out of the USDA. In 2018, Brazil was the world's largest exporter of beef, providing close to 20% of the total global beef exports, outpacing India, the second largest exporter, by 527,000 metric tons of carcass weight equivalent. Moreover, the USDA projects that Brazil will continue its export growth trajectory for the next decade, reaching 23% of the world's total beef exports by 2028. All right, so this is just beef. Brazil accounts for 20% of the total beef exports, the largest beef exporter in the world, and by 2028, they will account for 23%, according to the USDA. This is huge. Brazil has the world's second largest cattle herd, 232 million head, and its production is largely based on grass. Brazil is the world's largest exporter of chicken meat, with total exports at 4.17 million tons in 2022. All right. Overall, exports are expected to remain at just over a quarter of total production, with China being the top destination for Brazil's poultry. All right. So Brazil is also the largest chicken exporter in the world. This is huge. What's happening in Brazil? This could affect everyone. All right. And Brazil also supplies more than 50% of the world's soybean trade from crops produced on 17% of the country's arable land. So Brazil also produces 50% of the world's soybean trade. 50% of the world's soybean trade. And you may not eat soybeans, but it's another crop that animals eat. That is put in everything. That's a massive filler crop for everything, right? They put soybeans in everything now, and it's a massive filler crop, and it's also a feed crop, right? So 50% of the world's soybeans come from Brazil. This is setting up to be devastating if this continues. And like I said, the farmers support the cause. They are upset too with what's going on, but farmers are also warning, I'll get to in just a second, in Brazil, that it's going to ruin them, right? They're not going to be able to get their crops out and make any money, and it's going to be a huge problem for them. So, and Brazil is the largest soybean producer in the world, having recently surpassed the U.S. So, largest soybean producer, largest beef producer, largest soybean producer, largest beef exporter, largest chicken exporter. This is devastating, all right? And Brazil's biggest public company, Vale, is the world's largest producer of iron ore and nickel. The company runs the Powerhouse mine, the largest iron ore mine in the world, right? So Brazil's also home to the world's largest producer of iron ore and nickel, right? And Brazil is also number 2 in the world for iron ore. Australia's number 1, Brazil's number 2, China's number 3, India's number 4 for iron ore production. All right, this is going to affect food and the industry, right, and the building industry, production industry. Tons of things use iron and use metal, use nickel in them. All right, so I just wanted to remind everyone how critical Brazil is to the global supply chain. Right, because I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. It's one of these things. I didn't know these facts until I looked them up. I was like, Brazil's a powerhouse. This is crazy. I knew they were a massive agriculture producing country, but to know that they are number 1 in all of these different fields is incredible, right? And could be devastating for the global supply chain. So let's get into what's happening in Brazil really quick, because it's getting worse, all right? Situation's deteriorating. So truck drivers threaten new road blockades in Brazil. Protesters in Brazil have blocked roads again, and lorry drivers threaten to strike in what could be a new wave of support for the outgoing president, Bolsonaro. 6 federal highways were blocked on Friday morning, although 2 were cleared by early afternoon, the federal highway police said. So they are blocking federal highways. The truckers are involved too. It's getting worse, guys. They're blocking ports. It's getting 6 federal highways. It's a lot. Truck drivers, some of whom claimed they would not get paid because their company's accounts were frozen for allegedly funding earlier pro-Bolsonaro protests, called on colleagues to strike in support of the president. All right, so sounds like Canada. The truckers are being shut down in Brazil as well, saying their company's bank accounts are being frozen because they are supporting these protests, right? This is crazy. This is crazy that they can do this. I saw a report just saying, just came out today because Justin Trudeau is testifying on all these trucker protests, and he was saying that Biden gave him direct orders to implement the Emergencies Act so the U.S. border wouldn't be blocked, right? He was saying this could not happen. Biden was like demanding this from Trudeau, that he has to do this because the U.S. borders cannot be blocked, and it's going to stop car production, all this stuff. And he was testifying, saying that, yeah, Biden told me to do this, right? And then he implemented the Emergencies Act and did all this. He cleared them out. He froze people's bank accounts. They arrested tons of people. They impounded their trucks, right? And it looks like they are using the same game plan in Brazil. It's strange how they always use these same tactics. It seems like the same people are doing it, you know? And it says, for more than 3 weeks, protesters have blocked roads and camped outside military buildings in Mato Grosso, Brazil's soy-producing powerhouse, right? So a lot of this action is going down in Brazil's soy-producing region, Mato Grosso, right? This is what's happening. That's why I wanted to bring up how big of a producer of soy Brazil is. They're the largest soy producer in the world, and they account for 50% of the world's international soy, the world's soy trading. It's crazy, right? It says it's also the heart of Brazil's farm country. It says they also have protested in other states across the nation while pleading for intervention from the armed forces or marching orders from their commander-in-chief. And this goes on to say the farmers were responding to this too. That's why I said the farmers say they support this, but they are also getting worried, right? So pro-Bolsonaro demonstrators slow corn transport in Brazil's Mato Grosso. Truckers and other demonstrators protesting the electoral defeat of Bolsonaro are hampering the transport of corn in the Mato Grosso state, the heart of Brazil's farm country, 2 farmers said on Monday. The highway police reported 11 demonstrations on Monday morning with roads blocked or partially blocked on 4 federal highways near farmers and grain processing facilities. Brazil's top public prosecutor authorized the governor of Mato Grosso to mobilize police to clear highways of protesters. The protesters have hampered transportations of some corn from farmers to ports and storage facilities, but the quantities could not be determined. The slowdown could have knock-on effects as warehouses need to be emptied ahead of January's soy harvest, right? So they're trying to empty out their warehouses and get them to port, clear out their corn harvest for their soybean harvest coming up so they can store their beans in there. And they're saying they're having problems getting their corn out, and if the corn's still in there, they can't put the beans in there, right? This is a compounding effect, and it's just one of these things, like, I understand people are upset with this. I understand. I understand the truckers, the farmers, the protesters, I get it, but at the same time, you're also shutting down, you're making things even worse, you're kind of playing into their hand and kind of giving the other side what they want by shutting down the food supply, shutting down the fuel supply, shutting down exports, shutting down the ports, shutting down the farmers, hurting the farmers. You're kind of just helping, kind of going against your cause at the same time. It's one of these things. It's a sticky situation, all right? I'm not saying anyone's wrong or right. I'm just saying it's very sticky, all right? I get their points, but it's also these farmers, you're kind of hurting the farmers too, right? And then you're going to also cause potentially food shortages to be even worse. That's the bad thing here. So, quote, it's actually a race against time. Clean the corn warehouses so you can start reaping soybeans, a farmer, Evandro Lerman, told Reuters. The blockades are also delaying deliveries of farm inputs needed for planting of Brazil's second corn crop early next year. While farmer Canron supports the protesters' cause, he said the blockades have prevented him from moving his corn, and he will not receive payment until he delivers it. Quote, we give full support to protesters, but we are being harmed, he said, right? So this is true. It's one of these things it's hard. It's hard to resist, okay? It's hard to make change. It's hard to see the change you want because it disrupts the system that's already in place, right? So let me know what you guys think about all this. This could be devastating for the world's food supply, right? Brazil's the largest exporter of beef, chicken, largest soybean producer, and the second largest iron ore producer in the world, and has the largest iron ore and nickel producer in the world, right? And this farmer's saying, quote, we give full support to protesters, but we are being harmed, right? That's what I'm worried about, and I'm worried about food shortages coming too. So stock up on the stuff. Get canned chicken, get canned beef, get canned Spam, get canned Vienna sausages, get any kind of canned meat that you can, because frozen stuff's good, but what happens when the power goes out? That freezer is going to go down quick, right? You want to have canned goods, canned chicken, canned all this stuff, and try to eat it too. Try to eat some canned chicken. Try to eat these canned goods. It doesn't taste the same. It's not the same. You have to figure out how to eat these things. It's not the same. It's a little different, right? You might be a little surprised once you eat like some canned chicken or some canned whatever is the first time, right? It's a little different. It's not exactly what you expect. So get used to also eating these things now. You don't have to chow down, but try them out. Try these flavors. See what you actually like before you buy $50 in canned chicken and you don't even like that brand, canned chicken. Maybe you need to get canned tuna. Maybe that's better for you. Maybe you don't even like canned chicken at all. Canned chicken's kind of has a strange taste. It's gotta be right. It's gotta be prepared right, or it tastes weird. All right, it's one of those things. That's how all this stuff is. So get used to it now. Stock up now. Stock up, and same thing with these metals. Right, we could see shortages in the cans as well. Right, because metal markets are also having shortages. We are seeing metal plants being shut down worldwide as well. So just get stocked up on your cans now, especially your canned meats, because we could see massive shortages of this. Brazil accounts for 20% of global beef. 20%. It's a lot. And it's been shut down for 3 weeks now. These ports and these exports have been shut down, and the farmers are getting worried. So stock up now, learn to grow now, get some chickens now. I got my chickens a brand new coop recently because their wood coop got destroyed. One of those like super cheap wood coops. They're so cheap, piece of junk. I got a new chicken coop that is metal, has a metal frame. The metal chicken wire is welded to it. It's thick. It's not even actual chicken wire. You know what I'm talking about. It's that thick hardware cloth. It's welded to it. It's all metal frame. It has some wood for the nesting box, but it's all metal frame. All right. Way sturdier. I can move it around way easier. I love it. All right. Chickens love it too. Get yourself some chickens. All right. Get yourself a garden. Learn how to grow. It's winter here, and I'm itching to get a garden going. All right. We just moved into this house during winter, right? We're moving this house during winter, so I haven't been able to get a garden, but I'm just itching. I'm about to just grow some kale and grow some carrots and grow some spinach and grow some other stuff out there in the garden beds in winter and just try to do it and have them covered up, right? So let me know what you're doing on your homestead. Get prepared. Don't stop, guys. Get your canned food now. Get some chickens. Get a garden going and stay blessed. Thanks, guys.